just to finish up a little bit on the Harrison to the Patriot, that's just been the move. That is the move that could determine who wins the Super Bowl, quite frankly. I mentioned on this show how I thought the NFC was the stronger conference. Look, I mean, you've got either the defending champion who's going to be the 6th seed of the conference in the Atlanta Falcons, or the Seattle Seahawks, who are not that long ago going to back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, there's still Sherman there. There's still Hasselbeck. Come on. That's, a lot of the same nucleus. And they've been there before. They're going to be the 6th seed. That's a pretty strong conference. I know Zeke Elliott was suspended 6 games, all that. The Cowboys not making. Either the Falcons or the Seahawks aren't going to make the playoffs. I realize when it's all said and done, probably, in 10 years, we'll look back at both the Falcons and the Seahawks and their Super Bowl chokes, and we'll say, those teams underachieved. But you can't deny their talent. And one of them's going to miss the playoffs. Meanwhile, there's still a possibility an 8-8 team could make it out of the AFC. I hope it's not, the Titans at 8-8, because that would just be embarrassing. I actually hope it's the Titans at 9-7. I've said this. I want Mike Mularkey to keep his job. I've worked with him. I've covered him. I want Shea Townsend and Dick LeBeau to keep their jobs. I like these guys. Of course, they go on 8-8. Then, the franchise will probably say, it's time for a change. Hey, that Jeff Fisher has moved back to town. But now, just going back to, let's stay here. Ben Roethlisberger had this to say about James Harrison's release.
James has to do what James has to do. I didn't, it's not like he called and asked me if he should or not. James was out there as a free agent. He's going to do what he needs to do, what's best for his family. And like I said, I wish him the best. I've had a lot of good years with him.
Blah. Blah. All right. Now, remember what I said about the trade secrets. Oh, Big Ben says he's not worried about that.
That's on James. If they want to ask him every single piece of information he has, then that's what this league. I guess other people do that too. So I'm not worried about it. We don't play them this week. We go next week. So we'll see.
There is the old adage, it's more important on what you do than what the other team does, and I believe that, but I still can't believe that picking Harrison's brain won't be amazing. It is such a Belichick move. It is such a brilliant move. You wonder why Belichick always beats Mike Tomlin. And the idea that Mike Tomlin couldn't see that coming. That to, a suspended, I said earlier he was injured, a suspended lineman? Come on. Anyway, Bill Belichick first said he was not going to talk about his new player.
Former players now who analyze football who say a move like that is great for intelligence, the idea that he could tell you things about his former team. Do you put any stock into that aspect of when you sign a player, any player?
We're playing the Jets this week. I don't really know what that has to do with it. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
In that case, he was looking ahead to a possible team in the playoffs.
We'll play the Jets this week.
That's why they loved Bill Belichick in Cleveland a generation ago. That's why Mike Trevisano, friend of the show, former guest on the show, once did a program, 1994. The Browns were 8-3. Yeah, the Browns kids once were 8-3. And it was their best record since 1972. I looked it up. He was doing a remote in a restaurant. This is a famous talk show host in Cleveland. Imploring the Cleveland Browns, fire Bill Belichick with an 8-3 record. Imploring them to do it. They didn't want to have to put up with that in the media anymore. In Boston, and I really think that I know a reason why he's been able to succeed. Well, Marky, that's easy. He wins all the time. Yeah, obviously. But there have been, managers. Pat Corrales was once fired with his team in first place. Grady Little was fired after taking the Red Sox to this close, to an Aaron Boone home run away from going to the World Series. It happens. I'm trying to think of a football analogy where this is, but Dan Reeves was fired after a successful tenure in Denver, certainly. I believe his last year they had fallen down. I mean, I'm not going to discount that. And I'm trying to, like I said, I mentioned yesterday Marvin Lewis. He's 2 years off a playoff berth. That is a little long. We get that, and so on. Andy Reid, there's an example right there. He could do no right in Philly. All he ever did was win there. So you can, in frustration, get rid of a coach sometimes just because you don't like him. Jimmy Johnson's great example right there. There's the example I'm looking for. It's because of personality. I think one of the reasons why Bill Belichick, they just sort of deal with it, and I truly believe this. I have an old college buddy. He was on this show in its first incarnation, Michael Holley. And Holley has won a Pulitzer Prize. He's a sports talk show host for WEEI up in Boston. He wrote a book called Patriot Reign about 2000. It was 2002, right after they won their first Super Bowl, the Patriots did, on how this was assembled and all this. Bill Belichick gave him access. I know Mike. I know he likes to go against the grain. I know how much he knows Bill Belichick was hated in Cleveland. And you can't tell me, because Mike is actually from Cleveland, that wasn't a motivation to write the book on how great Bill Belichick was. To sort of go, yeah, against people he knew, and he knew that they didn't win. I'm going to now talk to him. Look at him. He won the Super Bowl. I'm going to go do this. And it's legitimate. Don't get me wrong. It's legitimate. But I think that cemented a lot of Belichick's reputation. The book Patriot Reign, it went on from there. And so you can, media will put up with things like this.
Playing the Jets this week. I don't really know what that has to do with it. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
What a wonderful... This guy said he liked going to press conferences. He's like, well, the way I communicate with the fans is through the media, which every coach does. Remember he gave that quote to Chris Berman a while back, and I'm saying, this is what you give the media, though, Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it's been a lot of transition there. A lot of time in that position. And the players themselves have put a lot of time, even though it's been a number of players. It's probably getting close to double digits now. So, got a lot of guys that worked hard at those spots. In various roles or assignments in different personnel groupings and so forth. So, just keep working at it.
That was what he talked about, outside linebackers. That's his comment on James Harrison. Bill Belichick. You get nothing out of the man. I mean, it's awful. It really is. You want to talk? I'll give you talk about why the NFL declines in popularity when this is your coaching spokesman. I think Gold Triv knew something about Bill Belichick back in the day and why it wouldn't work out, even when he started to win the most Super Bowls. Of course, I am fond of saying that when Chuck Noll, who had the record for Super Bowls before Bill Belichick, in Noll's last ever game that he coached with the Steelers, he beat Bill Belichick. Go look that one up. Happened, yeah. Last game in 91. I always thought that was great. But, the reason why Vince McMahon now thinks that maybe, just maybe, the time is right for a new XFL is because the NFL is vulnerable. Torrie Wilson, one of his, stable of wrestlers, I guess Bobby the Brain Heenan didn't like hearing, they're not racehorses. It's the Heenan family, not the Heenan stable. He used to say that a lot. But Wilson, who's a former great female wrestler, spent nearly a decade working, or wrestler, as the case really is. We're not talking about, I was about to say Kurt Angle, but I was thinking of Kurt Angle, the Olympian, rather than Kurt Angle, the pro wrestler. That's got to be sad for, you're a great wrestling champion, and not the only guy to do that. And you go from Olympic gold or great success as an amateur wrestler. There's no pro wrestling circuit. This is pro wrestling. This, glorified stage combat. That's what it is, regardless. Essentially, Wilson is saying Vince McMahon we're talking about is not the sort of guy who's going to fail twice. But with all the drama surrounding the NFL, if there's ever a time to do it, it might be now. And they are, I think you could look at this. It'd be kind of interesting to see because an XFL is a place where, say, a Colin Kaepernick could wind up. Opportunity for him, if he's serious about standing for the anthem, to revive his career, certainly. Same thing with a Johnny Manziel or any number of players, RG3, who could be resurrected, much the way the XFL resurrected a Tommy Maddox's career or made Rod Smart, He Hate Me, into a household name. The one thing to remember about the XFL is that when it debuted, it was the top-rated show on TV by a long shot. It did great ratings. And then the next week it was, wait a minute, these are second-string football players. Wait a minute, the Super Bowl is the $1 million game. Most guys in the NFL already make $1 million. Wait a minute, these guys aren't that good. Now, the XFL did, believe it or not, influence football in a lot of ways. The camera shot that you see now, similar to when you're playing Madden, over the top, this sort of thing, not a sideline view, but a behind the quarterback view. That's the XFL. Thankfully, there's no running for the ball to determine possession instead of a coin flip. But, and also, the name on the jersey is good. I do remember in Major League Baseball when, didn't Andy Messersmith have Channel 17 on the back to promote WTBS back in the day? I remember Vita Blue just putting Vita on the back of his uniform. Well, that's kind of legit. And I also remember Dick Allen with Wampum, because he was from Wampum, Pennsylvania, okay? And Dick Allen, the great slugger for the Chicago White Sox at the time when he did this, also played for the Phillies famously, wore Wampum on the back of his jersey rather than Allen. Okay, some identity. But that, there's something to that. There's something to, I don't know, Jason Witten putting Elizabethan on the back of his jersey. Or even Jason. It's a whole other thing if Jason Witten is putting on something like, he loves me, or I don't know. By the way, with that said, I'm going to now call myself the Roadrunner. That's right, the Roadrunner. Because I never bother anyone. See, I'm going to go into that XFL thing. But, yeah, there was the reports are Vince McMahon is sniffing around, talking about reviving the XFL. Torrie Wilson may have a point, the NFL's lack of popularity, but the thing is, can he get the players that will make people watch? He's always developed, wrestlers. They're nobodies. They come out. He's never treated the talent well. We know about how pro wrestlers and how their bodies break down, the steroid abuse and all that. At least with the USFL, they were going out and signing Herschel Walker or Jim Kelly or Brian Sipe or Steve Young. They were going out and signing Heisman Trophy winners. They were trying to build a legitimate football league. If Vince McMahon is ever going to make it, he's going to have to embrace that. And although he has essentially taken out, I believe, sold $100 million worth of stock and is trademarking a lot of phrases such as UFL, remember the old United Football League? Well, I guess that trademark is up there. For the love of football, etc. You are going to have to, the NBA knows this, and really all the sports, even the NFL, which is so team-orientated in terms of its marketing, they know you got to have a Tom Brady. You got to have a bad guy like Richard Sherman, maybe even a Colin Kaepernick. Now, the question is, if this all comes about, And you did have a Kaepernick reviving himself, a Johnny Manziel or whoever. Greg Hardy is saying he wants to play. That might be a problem. When Greg Hardy said, because I know you're not sitting on the edge of your seat saying, I really want to see Greg Hardy play pro football again. But nevertheless, Troy Wilson may have a point about the NFL. My point that I would make is I would make sure to put franchises in places like San Diego, St. Louis, Oakland, San Antonio. I would look for that, maybe one in New York, that sort of thing, because that way you could have franchises in markets scorned that want pro football, and so I throw it open again. We're a top 100 market in the Tri-Cities. How do you get on the map? Las Vegas thought it was sports. Oh, yeah, they were already on the map. But why not? Tri-City Sports Now. You can say I'm a dreamer.
1420 NBC Sports Radio.